Okay. Dear Ajahn, the Buddha often recommended lying down in the lion's posture to rest. May I know if the lion posture is taught or practiced within the Sangha? Thank you. Yes, it is in a way. You usually, when you go to sleep, you usually kind of have a posture which is roughly equivalent to the way the Buddha talks about. It's usually for sleeping that you use the lion's posture, lying on one side, right, on the right side usually. Or is it the left side? I can't remember now. I don't think it matters all that much. Right? Is it the right side? Okay. So there you are. Somebody knows more about the lion's posture than I do. That's really that's good. So yes, and there is also, of course, perfectly okay to lie down for meditation as well. Often they recommend lying on your back if you do meditation, especially if you sleep on your side. It can be good to lie on your back when you do meditation practice. And some of the people, not sleeping meditation, no, this is not. This is a different kind of meditation. This is the real meditation where you actually are aware of what's happening. But I know some monastics who are very good meditators who use the lying down posture to meditate, because you can really relax sometimes, right? You really relax. The body becomes a complete non-problem. If you are going to sit with your legs crossed all the time, sometimes the body can kind of, after a while, it becomes a bit difficult. But lying down, it's very easy to forget about the body very quickly. And ideally, you avoid the sleeping meditation and you do the real meditation instead. Of course, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you fall asleep, right? It becomes a little bit too relaxed. So you have to know the right time for the right things. But you are allowed, you can experiment a little bit with these things and see what works for you. Especially when you go on a retreat and you are meditating a lot, it can be good to vary your posture a little bit. Sometimes sit on a chair, sometimes sit on the floor, sometimes lying down, doing walking meditation, and all of these kind of things. To vary the posture can be very useful. Dear Ajahn, referring to Anguttara Nikaya 2.12, Power of Development section, what does it mean by maturing in release? Does it mean letting go? Thank you. Okay, so the idea there, this is a kind of standard thing you see with the bojjhangas, that they are based on viveka, seclusion, based on viraga and based on nirodha, and maturing in release is a standard way that these bojjhangas, the factors of awakening, are explained. And all it means is based on seclusion, because when you are secluded, that is when you practice the bojjhangas. First of all, physical seclusion, the kaya viveka, and then the chitta viveka, which is the mental seclusion from the 5 hindrances. And then the idea of fading away and cessation is that those factors that get in the way for samadhi, they fade away. The body fades away, the senses fade away, the hindrances fade away. After a while, the piti fades away, and you go deeper and deeper into samadhi. Things fading away and ceasing is always a positive thing, and means that you're moving towards deep states of meditation. Right? So it's based on that. And then eventually, if you keep on basing on that, it ends up with you relinquishing things. It ends up with having insight, and you give up the things around you because you see them cease. You see that they're not really yours. You see that they are impermanent. You see they are suffering. When they cease, you become more happy. So they must be suffering, right? And then that ends up in the sense of release, in that you give these things up. Vosagga is the word there, and it's very closely related to patinissaga, which is also found in a similar way. Two very closely related words. And it means the ending of craving. You are released from these things. You're not interested in anymore. You're not attached to these things. That is the idea there. So these are very high states that we are talking about, very high qualities of mind. Okay, Bhante, I enjoy food, eating. And my friends and I would go searching for the best food in town. Please teach me how to practice food restraint with wisdom power. What is the first thing to reflect on? Thank you. Don't worry too much about that. It is okay to search out the best food. If you become a monk, then you have to, or a nun, I don't know, then you have to kind of accept whatever food is there. If you're living lay life, enjoy a little bit of sense pleasures. Do it in moderation. Don't become a complete fanatic about food. And don't do things that break the precepts, of course, but don't worry too much about these things. It's important. You have to enjoy life a little bit. Don't become too ascetic. So just go with the flow. Just go with what feels natural, right? And if you find that it becomes a disturbance to go searching for the best food all the time, then search a little bit less, because right? Because it can become a hindrance sometimes, especially if you are too busy and too many things happening here. But don't worry too much about these things. It's important to enjoy life as well. So please do that. That would be my advice. Don't take it too seriously. Find that nice middle way here. Dear Ajahn, please clarify. 1. The Buddhist concept of merits. Generally, this tends to promote craving and bargaining for wholesome and worldly matters. Buddhist concept of merit. Basically, it's about making good karma. And the idea is not so much that, when you talk about bargaining and worldly matters and wholesome things, this is this idea that, if I make merit, then I will become rich, right? I will have a big car and a big house and all these kind of things. But don't think about merit in that way. Think about merit in what it does to your mind state. You are making good karma. It's supposed to make you feel happy, right? This is the idea of merit. If merit is practiced in the right way, you feel good about yourself. And this is really what it is about. And if you do that, if you make merit in that way, it will become a very useful support for your life as a Buddhist and for your meditation practice. So just a way of thinking about it in the right way. There's nothing wrong with merit. It's really just how we use it that really matters. I agree, if all you think about is the nice car you're going to get in the future after feeding the monks, then not such a good idea. I would not recommend that way at all, because you're quite right, that just gives rise to craving. But even then, it is okay, right? We start somewhere. People are people. They have to begin somewhere, and then you learn about making merit in the right way over time. So even if somebody does make merit in that way, don't kind of tell them off and say you're a bad person or anything like that. Just encourage them to move on to the next level, right? Oh, this is even more happiness, right? That BMW, that's not going to give you that much happiness. This is the real way. This is how you get real happiness in life. And then you move them on. You help them on this path. Generosity is always good. Kindness is always good. If there's a little bit of craving there, okay, so it's not perfect, but you can improve, but it's still good. Number 2, the appropriate way to be benefiting from merit other than transference and sharing of merit. That's what I just said now. Make it something that makes you feel happy inside, clears your mind up, gives you kind of a bright mind, which is energetic and happy and mindful. How the concept of merit has been corrupted over time. Okay, so I think that is really what you have been saying here is quite correct, right? Merit, when you read about it in the suttas, good karma, is really comes down to the meditation practice, and sometimes it can be a bit worldly, as you say, and of course it can be even taught that way or promoted that way. I know that there are certain large Buddhist organizations where this is kind of made into a big thing, and you make merit, and then you end up, you get the position closer to the shrine if you pay so many $100, a bit further back if you pay a bit less. Very, very materialistic. And this is within the Theravada context, some of these enormous temples, and you kind of buy your way into a prestigious position into these societies. And to be honest, I think it's terrible. It's really, really bad news. But that is a little bit how the world works sometimes. And I think it's sad that Buddhist organizations should take advantage of people's kind of cravings and people's kind of stupidity in this way here. It's really kind of bad. So be wise about it. Reflect for yourself. Don't buy into all of these kind of ideas that sometimes exist in this world. Once you see that happening, there's something feels very wrong about that. And I think if people are smart, they will actually get that. But of course, not everybody is smart, unfortunately. Anyway, so let us go on to the next one. Dear Ajahn, since wisdom power is very important in our spiritual cultivation, may Ajahn explain further as to how one can develop wisdom and increase one's wisdom power on the spiritual path? Thank you, sadhu times 3. Okay, so that is what I was talking about today, right? With the how to deal with the anger. This is all about wisdom power. When you deal with anger in the right way, you see somebody you don't like, and you can realize, okay, anger, negativity, fault finding is about to arise in my mind. And then the mindfulness is there, the clear comprehension is there, that you understand I'm heading in the wrong direction. Pull down one of those perceptions from the shelf of the positive qualities in this person that will blot out all the negative things, and then you have a sense of goodwill instead. This is wisdom power, right? That's what it means. There's very little willpower involved. All that is involved is a shift in your perception, a shift in the way you look at that person. Yeah, very easy. Same thing, easy in theory, but it takes quite a bit of practice, of course, to get there. Same thing with sensuality sometimes. If you become very greedy for things, right? You remind yourself, I'm going to die for goodness sake. Why am I kind of accumulating all of this stuff? Kind of simple perception to help you to kind of, okay, relax. Don't be so worried about all of these things. This is what wisdom power is, to remember the limitations, remember what is important to look out for in other people. That's really all it is. And then you are on the right track. I will talk more about these things later on. Today we had how to deal with anger. I will talk more about all of these things in more detail, because I think quite rightly it's a very good question, a very important question that you have asked. And for that reason I will touch much more on this tomorrow especially. Okay. Venerable Ajahn, since karma determines rebirth and many lifetimes of aspiration and cultivation may lead to enlightenment, I still cannot understand how the Buddha randomly becomes awakened without the process of aspiration and many births of cultivation. Okay, so the idea, what happens with the Buddha is, maybe random is not a good word. Maybe when I use the word random is not the ideal thing, but it's obviously the case that the Buddha to be has been doing the right thing, right? He has been practicing in past life, living in the right way, so his mind is going in that direction. But he doesn't really follow a path. He doesn't have any recipe that says this is what you have to do. And this is what I mean by it tends to be a bit random. He has to figure it out all by himself as he goes along. Failure, success, back and forth. But he has enough wisdom to kind of guide himself. And of course, his mind is developing in the right way over a long period of time, so that when he comes to his last life, he is ready. He's very close to awakening already. And all he needs is that last little thing to make awakening possible, right? But he's not following a path. He's kind of, the conditions are, it is uncertain, very uncertain whether he actually will reach awakening. And that is why it happens so rarely, because it is so hard if there is no path. It happens every now and again, the conditions kind of come together in a certain way. And when the conditions come together in a certain way, a person awakens. But it's because there is no path, it happens very rarely. And that is what I really mean by that. So random is probably the wrong word. It's just that it's rare for these things to happen. That's what I really mean by this, because there is no clear path. Yeah? Is this random result of Buddhahood very clearly indicated in the sutta, or is it a postulation? Well, again, what it says in the sutras, you can see that the Buddha is not following a path, right? Because he is doing all kind of wrong things on the way. He starts out leading the household life, enjoying sensual pleasures. Then he does all the torment of the body and all these kind of things. He obviously is not following a path. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He's experimenting, right? And this is what I really mean by the fact that it's not... it is random. The conditions have to come together, and when the conditions come together, then it happens. Let's say that in India in those days there hadn't been any teachers who taught samadhi. Would the Buddha have been able to awaken if he hadn't had those teachers? Don't know. Maybe he would, maybe not, but it's not certain, right? Certain conditions have to be in place for these things to happen. And that's why I mean it is a little bit it's a bit dicey. It's very uncertain whether it will actually happen or not. Many thanks for your kindness and patience. Okay, great. Dear Ajahn, my ill will gets easily worse when I drive, and I usually blame the other drivers who do not follow the traffic rules. Is my giving up driving gradually a good way to practice patience? You can give up. Everybody has problem with driving, right? I hear everybody, so much kind of people get really angry in traffic. It happens everywhere, I think, in the world. I always hear about people having problems with this. It's very nice to be a monk. I never drive. I always in the passenger seat, looking out the window. It's really, really quite handy. But I'm not sure if giving up driving is really the best way to deal with this. The best, I mean, you can, of course, if it is convenient for you, you can do that. But sometimes it's very inconvenient to give up driving. Just see it as a test. See it as a way of developing these good qualities inside of yourself. Patience is not about giving up driving. Patience is about being patient with the people in the traffic, right? This is another way of developing patience. So look at these drivers who are crazy. Remember that they are just conditioned that way. It's not that they really want to be nasty or difficult, but they think that they are in a hurry. They think that their kind of car getting ahead is more important than everybody else. Who cares about everybody else as long as I get ahead? It's just a kind of a selfish attitude. It's a blindness. It's a spiritual blindness and a kind of stupidity on the part of those people. So again, it's a chance to develop a bit of compassion, right? People are blind. They don't know what they're doing. Again, they have been conditioned into that process. Use it as an opportunity for spiritual growth. So there's many different ways of dealing with this. Giving up driving is only one. Just if that is not convenient, there are all these other ways of dealing with these things. So if we take every difficulty in life as an opportunity for growth, for changing our perceptions, then we will grow spiritually very fast. We take difficult people as an opportunity for growth, difficult drivers in the traffic, right? Any kind of thing like that. We take it as an opportunity, and then, whoa, we're going to make so quick progress, right? Whoa. And before you know it, wow, bam, and then you are, deep samadhi, and all of these wonderful things happen because you're practicing the path the right way. It's good, isn't it? So that's how it works ideally. Dear Ajahn, the sutras mention that all anagamis are reborn in the Suddhavasa realms. The devas in these realms have very long lifespans. When the Suddhavasa devas attain enlightenment, do they vanish from the realms right away? Or do they live on for billions of years until the end of their lives? Thank you, Ajahn. Yes, okay. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure what happens, to be honest with you. I haven't really been there and checked it out. It would be cool to go there, wouldn't it, and check it out and see what happens. But I'm not really sure. I think it is possible that they vanish straight away, because if you become enlightened, you don't really have much purpose in that realm anymore. It's like, okay, now I have done everything. They are mind-made already, so maybe it means that you just vanish. Suddenly, bang, and you're gone, you disappear. And all your friends wonder, whoop, what happened? He or she is gone, right? There is no he and she in Suddhavasa, so it has gone, it has disappeared. What happened? So not sure what happens, to be honest with you, but it is certainly a reasonable supposition that they may just disappear once they reach awakening. I don't think there is any final answer in the suttas, because this is a kind of question I've thought about before. Other people have asked, but I've never really seen any final answer in the suttas. Dear Ajahn, in Majjhima Nikaya 36, secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, the Buddha entered upon and abided in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure bane of seclusion, but such pleasant feeling that arose in him did not invade his mind and remain. Then, with the stilling and applied sustained thought, he entered the second jhana. Ajahn, what is this applied and sustained thought? Yes, this is a very good question. These words are vitakka and vichara in the Pali language. And there is one of these things that are discussed everywhere on the internet. People are arguing upwards and downwards and forward and backwards about what these things mean. And the answer is that the people I trust the most when it comes to these things are the people who have, as far as I'm concerned, the best kind of samadhi. And the person I know who has the best kind of samadhi, as far as I know, is actually Ajahn Brahm. I have no doubt that his meditation is incredibly profound and deep. And I usually compare what he has to say with what I see in the suttas. And there are many little indications, as far as I'm concerned, in the suttas about how to understand these kind of things. And one of the ways to understand this is to remember that vitakka and vichara cease completely in the second jhana. The very last remnant of vitakka and vichara exists in the first jhana, right? So it's going to be the most refined aspect of vitakka and vichara that is in existence for any being anywhere. So because of that, even though these words are used for thinking elsewhere in the suttas, here they are going to refer to the very last remnant of a thinking type process that exists in the mind. And for that reason, I think that it is very natural that what it means is a very simple movement of the mind, the very last movement of the mind that happens before it stops completely in the second jhana. Right? And this is what you see explained in the Visuddhimagga. Visuddhimagga being this ancient meditation manual found in the Pali language, written by Buddhaghosa 1,600 years ago or thereabouts. And that is how people like Ajahn Brahm and also other people who I know who have, as far as I'm concerned, have very good meditation, they will explain it in that way. It means the last remnant of movement, sometimes called the application of the mind, and then the sustained application of mind. Initial application, sustained application. It is not really a thinking process as such. And it is important actually to get these things right. Remember that the jhanas, they are called things like the Uttari Manusadhamma in the suttas, superhuman states, states or qualities beyond the normal human realm. So these are not going to be normal human things, right? They're not going to be like, oh, thinking away, or anything like that. They're going to be different. They have to have a completely different quality about them. You're now left the ordinary human things, gone into a different realm, a different reality in a sense. And that says something about the profundity of these factors in the first jhana. Very, very little left. And then they disappear completely as you go into the second jhana. Yeah, so the last remnant of movement of the mind in the first jhana, a very slight movement in there, but almost nothing at all. Nothing to do with thinking in the ordinary sense. The very last kind of movement of the mind. And then in the second jhana, it says samadhija. Samadhija means born of samadhi. So then the stillness is kind of absolute when you enter the second jhana. Okay, let's do maybe one or two last questions, and then we will call it a night after that. Dear Ajahn, please elaborate on what is the enlightenment factor of discrimination of phenomena. Thank you, and sadhu times 3. Okay, we actually did discuss this already at quite some length in a previous question, but I can maybe briefly touch on it again. Discrimination of phenomena means that you are aware of what qualities of mind are wholesome and what qualities of mind are unwholesome. You know which qualities are dark, which are bright, which are blameworthy, which are blameless. In other words, you have a full clarity, just like the Buddha was saying in the Dveda Vitaka Sutta we looked at today. You know the unwholesome qualities and you know the wholesome qualities, and you divide them into separate groups. So discrimination of phenomena means you discriminate. In other words, you are able to discern, to see, to differentiate between the good qualities and the bad qualities, putting them into two different camps. Very similar to the fourth part of the Satipatthana Sutta, where it talks about the Dhammanupassana, contemplation of Dhammas. It's a very similar kind of thing. You contemplate Dhammas, you know the hindrances, how they arise, how they exist, how they are abandoned. You know the same thing for the Bojjhangas, for the awakening factors. And as you know that, you understand the mind in all its details, in all its facets. And when you understand that, then you are able to abandon those things. You can't abandon things you don't understand. Once you understand all the dark and negative phenomena completely, then you can abandon them. And that is why you have mindfulness, then discrimination of phenomena, then energy. The energy arises because these things are abandoned. And then the whole thing up to samadhi arises as a consequence. Yeah. So I hope that helps. Let's do one last question for tonight, and then we'll leave a few for tomorrow. Bhante, in Majjhima Nikaya 19, the Buddha spoke, he abandoned, removed, and did away with the bad thoughts. I can understand, abandon, and fully agree with this, but how can one remove a thought or do away with it? Okay, so really these are just meant as synonyms. They are the same idea expressed 3 times, right? So abandon is just one way of talking about it. Remove here is just a synonym for abandoning something. And doing away with it is just another synonym for exactly the same thing. So all of these things just mean abandoning, really, and they don't really have any meaning apart from that. And again, the way to do that is by using wisdom instead of using willpower, seeing that they are dangerous, seeing that they are bad news, right? They lead to suffering, to bad things, and then they just disappear. And that's how you abandon these things. You don't remove them by force. You don't kind of grab hold of it and kind of remove it like that. Right? That's not what you do. You just watch it, you think about it in the right way, and boom, it is gone just like that. Just like that Deva in Suddhavasa, when it becomes an arahant, bang, gone in the same way. The thinking is gone in exactly the same way. It's good, right? It's really easy. Whoa, just gone like that. And this is kind of the idea behind this. Okay, I will... let's call it a night for now, and let's just pay homage to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and then we'll see you again tomorrow morning here.